There we go. And we're live. Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another Mindset Monday. I have the wonderful and talented River Tam with me today. You want to tell the folks a little bit about yourself while we're here?
Hi, I'm River.
Mm,
Uh, I like to meditate and I stream and that's I drink tea and that's about all I've got.
that's yep. That's fair. That's fair. I'm just gonna make sure that I think you're like slightly louder than me. Still, I'm gonna turn you down. Why are you so loud? Why am I so quiet? Why? Why?
It's, I
It's
mean
fine.
I'm right next to my mic, so that might have
I
something
don't
to do
like
with
being too close to my mic. I like being back here. Maybe
it.
I should just yell. That's fine.
Yeah, just
It's just
scream.
my mic doesn't it does the arm isn't wonderful, so it doesn't like sit where I like it to, so I just have it like practically straight down. Hell yeah, green screen. All
Hell
right.
yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, okay. I think now you're quieter. It's fine. It's fine. I can't see green screens.
What's a stream without like at least 5 different technical
Yeah,
difficulties?
okay. I'm gonna take out my I listened to the stream and it sounds okayish to me, so like let me know how it's going. Also let's see. Good morning. I almost just said good morning, River, because you're in chat, but you're also here. Good morning,
Morning.
Sam. Hi, Saida. And hi, Ty. Hi, Shamira. It's been so long. It's so nice to see you. I missed you. Colorblind Sam. This is my new identity. Hi. So nice to see you. I have missed your streams and your face and your cat, especially your cat. Anyways,
Cat,
um,
yes.
good morning, Tinfoil. Lovely to see you also. So today our topic is going to be meditation, which was one suggested by River. So thank you for that. And then just like a couple little quick things we're going to talk about. Obviously, it's just like before. Like we're gonna if you redeem any channel point stuff that I think is disruptive, which is like the stuff like go get a reptile or like stop what you're doing and play Club Penguin. I'm gonna veto that either till the end or I'll just refund you. If it's the more like quick and silly ones like the animal noise, sing a song, random animal facts, whatever, that's fine. It's just I don't want to have to stop our conversation for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. How about mom on stream? You can redeem that anytime because it's going to be a separate stream. God, I don't know how many points Chimera has. Anyways, it's fine. And
I
also
think we just
just like a little disclaimer as usual, because I try to say this like at least like 10 times per stream, that like we're not experts. We're just like people who like to meditate and are interested in self-growth and stuff and think these things need to be talked about more. So obviously most of what we're talking about is like stuff that's just from our perspective and our experience. So it might not work for you. It might work for you. We don't know everything, okay? That's it. That's all I wanted to say. All right,
or
so
do we? No, I'm just joking.
we're
We don't. No, we totally don't.
you can't prove that we don't know everything.
I
You
mean,
can't
unless you
prove
did like 10 seconds of research, then.
we know it all. Are you telling me you're not both PhDs in meditation reported? I have like this much education in this. I have a minor in neuroscience. So I've taken some psychology classes. So I'm not completely uneducated, but
One of my majors was animal behavior. Does that count?
we are animals. I would count that. I would say that's fair. We're all animals at our core. Anyway, so let's hop right into it. So I like to start as usual with like a bit of a like the Google definition so that we can and then we'll talk about that to see if we're sort of make sure we're on the same page. So Google says meditation is to think deeply or focus one's mind for a period of time in silence or with the aid of chanting for religious or spiritual purposes or as a method of relaxation. I mean, that's a pretty long definition, and honestly, compared to some of the other definitions I've seen for stuff, like it's not that bad,
I
in my
just
opinion.
can I just give like my layman's definition?
Yes, absolutely.
Meditation is sitting down and actually putting some muscle memory into thinking about your problems. That's my layman's
To be fair,
thing.
though, it's
However you achieve
yeah.
that is like that's the difference. But
I mean, we'll talk about this more later, but it isn't. It's not always sitting. To be
no,
fair,
okay, you're right. I should have
it's
left the sitting out.
it's
Is
like
existing itself or another?
if you're existing, you're meditating. You heard it here first, folks. I don't think that's like such a bad definition. I mean, I want to get into it more, but like I've definitely seen worse definitions for things. Um, So we were talking about this yesterday, which is like, so one of the first things we want to talk about was a little bit about the history of it, but it seems like a lot of the history it talks about is like when it sort of cropped up in different religions, because that seems to be where people think it came from, kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I think
Yeah.
you had a point yesterday that you can make if you want to.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, this kind of jumps around a few of the points that we were going to go through, but a lot of what we think about when we think of like meditation, or at least what I generally think of, is like sort of like Eastern style meditation, like
Hmm.
meditation that comes out of India,
Yep,
like meditation that comes out from like those like that set of religion, Buddhism and stuff like that.
for
But
sure.
and I have on my list here a couple that come from like more Western style, like
Hmm.
are built on like Christian mythos, and sometimes
Hmm.
not even on like any kind of religion that we might even like know generally, right?
Yeah,
Like the
absolutely.
less popular religions.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, I think we can totally go through it, but I think just the point I wanted to make really fast is I think like even for me as I got into this and was researching this, I was like, oh, like the things that I like actually kind of fall under meditation are a lot broader than I thought. Like even lots of different kinds of praying, even like in like Christianity and stuff. Like that's all like a type of meditation, really.
mhm.
Um, and
Yoga.
yeah, yoga is a type of meditation, and like there's just I think another point I wanted to touch on that I think you brought up yesterday was also just like just in general in life we tend to do things that are meditative without really realizing it is meditative. So like
Mhm.
thinking about your problems, I think to a degree is meditative. I mean, it can be good or bad obviously, but
Yeah, and I the way that I like summed it down myself yesterday was like we all have to like think about our problems. Like we all process them one way or
have
another. Like it
to.
might be like while you're listening to music or whatever. Meditation is just sort of like refining the technique around that,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mhm.
really putting some more effort instead of just letting your brain just sort of like eye on it.
Yeah, I think like just it seemed to me also just across like religions or like all the ones I looked at anyway, it seemed to be that people use meditation like either as a way of like sort of like connecting with the universe or like their respective gods or whatever, or of sort of finding themselves or working on themselves or like achieving nirvana and all that kind of stuff. Like it was usually like you're trying to connect with what's around you or you're trying to connect more with what's inside you, which is the basis of it. Head empty, no sounds. That's how I'm trying to be. Head empty. And then I think we had God. If you look up types of meditation, it's a mess. It's
Oh
a
yes.
mess.
Yeah. There's I only I so I had I when I looked this up, I found like the six, but
Yeah,
I don't believe there's just the six, and I ended up writing
yeah,
down, like I said, two
yeah,
more.
yeah. And I think like just as a sort of example, I think in a sort of a jumping off point, I do wanted to go over just the six, but like even when I was looking up, it was like here's six different kinds, here's 16 different kinds, here's like 35, and it's like what basically. But I think what like the thing about meditation and just like a lot of stuff in general is it's less about like you have to do it like one of these ways, and it's more like the best way to do it actually is to be like, oh well, I like this from this kind of thing, and like this part doesn't work for me and I like this, and it all sort of ends up overlapping, so trying to I think fit it into boxes doesn't usually work so well. But I think just to talk about some of the like maybe basic types for anyone who like doesn't know so much about meditation, we can totally go over the six if you want to
Sure, sure, sure.
start on
I'll
that.
read over the
Yeah,
six.
totally. Because I didn't make
So
notes on
okay, yeah, I got this. I got this. I'm all
it.
over this. So the six types that like Google immediately pushes is one is mindfulness meditation. So that's like you sit there and you don't really like empty your mind. You let your thoughts happen, but the practice there is to not engage the thoughts, is to more like take note of them and then sort of like, you can think about it later, but you just sort of take notes as like the thoughts pass by. Two is like spiritual meditations. This is like praying. Three is focus meditation. So that's more sitting there and focusing on something like your breath or how something feels, or it could be anything. You just focus on something. Four is movement meditation. So that's something like yoga or Tai Chi. 5 was mantra meditation, which people are more familiar with people saying like Om, but like it could be anything. They just say
You could say
something
meatloaf
repetitively so that
repeatedly.
it puts them into their state that they need. And then 6 is transcendental meditation, which, as according to Google, was the newest one, and that's supposed to be like saying something in your mind over and over. And normally it's supposed to be for about 15 to 20 minutes, according to it. But I'm not entirely certain if I understand myself why that's different from the mantra meditation. You're just saying it in your head instead of saying it out loud, but
Yeah, I also
it's different for
think it's like the movement meditation for me, it's like, well, you can be doing, mindfulness, or you can be doing focus things while you're doing movement. And it's like, for my own practice, I kind of do a bit of mindfulness and a bit of focus, and I kind of go back and forth. So it's hard to like be like, oh, this is what I do. So that's
yeah.
not, that's kind of just like, so you get the basic idea of like what is sort of like meditation. What
Mhm.
type of meditation would sitting under a waterfall for a long period of time count as?
That one,
Depends what's going on in your brain, I think.
well, normally, okay, so from what I understand, the stereotypical practice of this is actually
Excuse me.
more done, like that's more done for focus meditation, but they're not focusing on the feeling of the water. That's the idea, is that they're supposed to be focusing on some other thing and then learning
Wait,
to ignore the
wait.
water.
Do you like wait? Did she mean like you're literally like under the flow of water?
Yes.
Oh, I just thought you meant like just chilling in nature. Because I was like, you can
Yeah.
do anything. I go sit in the oregano or the thyme patch in my uh lawn frequently.
Yeah. I think I forget what group generally practices that, but that's an actual form of
That's
meditation that people also
interesting.
practice.
That sounds tough. And I
It
don't
is.
think I'm gonna go sit under a waterfall anytime soon. What's a long time? Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, sorry, this is jumping ahead a teeny bit, but I think one really cool thing about meditation is like sometimes we think it's like, oh, you sit there for hours or like whatever. But the thing with meditation is if you want to get into it and you're like, I don't think I can do it, you can literally do it for 1 minute, and that's a wonderful start.
Mhm.
Like it can make you feel better for like the next 10 minutes at least, and like that's a great start. Um and then yeah, so this is just like something we'll well, we kind of skip past that. That's okay. That's okay. So basically for me, oh hi messenger. So nice to see you. I'm gonna go meditate. See y'all in a week. I didn't want to see my towel. But for me, like I have this kind of theory around mental health and like personal growth for myself, that it's just sort of like the kind of like toolbox analogy, which is like the best way to do it, to get any project done or whatever, is to have lots of different tools that can work in lots of different situations. Because if you only have one tool, as soon as it stops working, like what are you going to do? Or, you know, I think
Throw
you
the tool out.
had,
No, I'm just
yeah,
joking.
you had an analogy about that yesterday, and I can't remember what it was, but it was about a hammer, and I liked it.
Oh, yeah. So my thing was like if you use the claw of a hammer to pull a nail out, every time you see something that looks like a nail, you're gonna keep trying to use the claw to pull the nail out until you get to a screw, and then you're just gonna be both screwed until you get a screwdriver. So that was my
Yeah,
analogy.
yeah.
You need
So
different
yeah,
things.
because I think for me, I think meditation is wonderful, and I think it's a tool, and it goes best when you have lots of other tools, which might be, different tools might be, therapy. In some cases it might be like medication, like it can be lots of different things. Just having different tools at your disposal can be super duper helpful, because I think people sometimes may find one thing that works for them and then they kind of hold on to that. When all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Yeah, that's another problem. It's like if you always use the same strategy for every single problem, it's not going to work. Probably.
No,
It's
no.
different, yeah. You different tools work for different peoples and for different situations. Hammer time.
Yes.
Um and also this is something my mom actually says a lot, so shout out to her for this one. But she always says that like meditation is sort of like, it's like an exercise for your mind.
It really is.
Yeah, and it's like we were sort of talking about, like you're literally like conditioning your brain. You are forming and strengthening new neural pathways. Basically, it can be like so it's easier for you to calm down if you have like a routine, or it's easier for you to deal with certain things. Like you're literally like training yourself and making new connections in your brain that will
Yeah.
make stuff easier down the road, which is why you kind of have to do it long term. It's not something you can just do for a little while. You have to, it's a practice. You have to keep practicing.
Yeah,
There's
it's
no, yeah.
you have to like attune your brain to like be more aware of whatever it is that you're trying to
Yeah.
practice.
It's going to the gym for your brain.
Yeah. The brain is a muscle now.
Yes. Yeah, well, like a lot of that, I mean, that kind of comes back to other things we talk about, which is just like habits and stuff. A lot of stuff, like even our like self-talk, like it's just habits, which means you can change them, and it can require a lot of work. But that's what it is. Life is one long practice. Absolutely.
That's very true.
Absolutely. You just we never stop learning. We never stop practicing. All that sort of stuff. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about here? Yeah, I think like
Well, I had
go ahead.
That's right. I had there. So I did say earlier. I had two other uh types of meditation that I had written
Oh
down
yeah,
past
sure,
the
sure.
six that we recognize more. Um, and if it's okay, I just want to give like a little bit of like the background as to why I also looked these up. I was watching a show that was talking about well, it was talking about magic, but the guy had a very good point of talking about people trying to connect with meditation. And because we see often like stereotypical meditation as more like Eastern style and coming out of like Eastern religions, it's hard for us to sort of connect with it and understand it really. And so he tried to take a look at what more Western meditation looked like based in like our like religions that are more popular here. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be religious. It's just you probably will be able to connect and more like understand it because you have been immersed in a culture that has those. And so there's such things as like ritual magic, which is what this guy practiced, where he did something that he considered astral projection. And I don't really know if I personally think that that's
Yeah,
something you
we're
can
not
do.
gonna yeah, we're not necessarily gonna debate about what, you can and can't
Yeah.
do. We're not here to discredit people or not believe people. It's
Yeah,
fine.
but
But
one way or the other, this was based out of like a Christian mythos for him, and he was able to better connect with it. But there's also such things as like native ceremonies as well was another way that people
mhm,
in Western
absolutely.
cultures meditated. Was they sat around and like even like just smoking tobacco. That was something that they did while they meditated.
Mhm. Mhm. For sure. I was trying really hard not to laugh while you're talking about hello dear Ahi Dahi. Changing my legal name to Dahi. Basically nuns or monks do it with a rosary praying, right? Yeah, that's what something we sort of talked about before, which is like a lot of things like praying and, various different kinds of prayer and stuff like that. That is like a type of meditation, really.
Mhm.
And then I wanted to talk about a little bit about my like how I would sort of divide up practices a little more. Like I don't necessarily like the idea that like these are the types and these are only the only ones you could do because there's so much that goes on with each one. But these are just like if you're starting to get into it, like what are the things you might think about. Um, and like one of the points we already talked about, but I wanted to come back to again is like we already kind of do things that are meditative. Do you guys do yoga? Yeah, like, well, yoga's one of them. If you do yoga, you already do meditative stuff. And even, stuff as simple as like last night I was coloring a whole bunch, and even, doing things like you can find like cleaning meditative, like doing the dishes if it's just something that like helps your brain like not be so loud basically. That's sort of a meditative thing.
Yeah, I find yoga myself is like I've tried yoga, I've tried Tai Chi before, and
Yeah.
it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work
Yeah.
for me in my particular blend of whatever's going
Yeah,
on.
yeah. I like stretching, but I find like and some parts of that is like yoga, but I find actual yoga, especially stuff like downward dog, really doesn't work for me because my legs are super tight, and also I hurt my shoulder real bad lately, which means I can't even do like most of the like guided kind of yoga. I can't do it because of just various ridiculous things. Or mala beads called different things in different cultures. Yeah, that's absolutely. People like definitely attach um like sort of meditative value to certain objects, or even like I think I had a note here. Hold on, where is it? Where it's like I believe in Islamic practices. They go through, they do a sort of meditation prayer type thing where it's like they go through different like postures through the day. I don't know a whole lot about
Mhm.
that, but as long as you don't watch Netflix while doing it, right? Yeah, because Netflix is not so much meditative because it's like filling the space in your brain. Whereas I think doing something with your hands that doesn't require a lot of thought or processing can be very meditative. Back when my very religious grandma used to live with me, she would spend a lot of free time in the prayer beads. It's interesting because that kind of defeats the point. Mm-hmm.
I think the idea as well, like the reason that like Netflix doesn't work is you're looking for like an activity that at least lets you sort of go into like muscle memory mode, even with like yoga or anything like that.
Yeah.
You need the ability for just your body to just function and just do its thing so that your brain doesn't have to sit there and actively be like, okay, step 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Like,
yeah. I think the thing for me too is like Netflix is a distraction in my opinion. Like doing something like I sort of said before, like it's just filling up your brain because your brain still has to do processing, but it makes it so it's easy to not think, but you're not making space in your brain for processing because you're filling up your processing units basically with like what's going on in the story.
Yep.
There's some wonderful moves. Oh my god, guys, next Mindset Monday, I've decided right now is going to be live yoga with Messenger. That's what we're doing. I've decided. That's what we're doing. Yeah, folding laundry. That's definitely a good one. Yeah, it's just like doing things where you can occupy like for me particularly, like I have a hard time sitting still. Like you can see I'm fiddling with this right now. And I think that's a pretty common thing for people. Like it's just very hard. It can be very hard to like sit still and like slow down. So having something where it's like your sort of like unconscious like automated like part of your brain can kind of take over that part, so you're doing something that sort of frees up like your what's the big boy called, like your big cognitive processing center basically. What about live laundry folding? I only have there's a lot of laundry in my house. Probably
you just have to let a week's worth of laundry build up and then on Monday do like a laundry
when
folding.
we have mom on stream. We'll do laundry folding. My mom likes laundry.
Best stream ever.
Yeah, but I awesome. Talk to you later. I'm prepping for Toyo. Yeah, have fun with your tutorial. I hope it goes well. I hope more people show up and don't ask you dumb questions. Ideally, I've been really stressed lately, and because of that, I've been doing my makeup a lot recently. Because doing my makeup's really relaxing, and usually looking at the end result makes me feel really happy with yourself. Yeah, I would definitely say that's something that's kind of meditative because it requires like a certain kind of focus. I mean, I think one thing too is when we think, we actually use, like when we think in words, we actually are using the verbal parts of our brain. So if you're busy processing like a Netflix show where people are talking, you're taking up that space in like the verbal processing center, so you can't really use that to think. Where it's like if you're using the motor parts of your brain to do something, you're still engaging your brain, but you have freed up the listening parts and the verbal parts of your brain to actually think. Anyways, the thing that I'm trying to talk about is, so that was like one thing of my personal sort of like divisions. It's just at that point I wanted to come back to, but I just have 3 like little ones of like, if you want to get into meditation, this is maybe something to consider. Is one thing is there's guided meditation and there's unguided meditation. I personally currently do unguided meditation. Sometimes I do guided meditation with Headspace, but I do think guided can be good, especially if you're a beginner, mostly because they usually teach you good techniques that then you can then bring into your like unguided practices, that if that's what you want. It's just teaching you the skills, because I think if you go into it and you're like, I'm just going to sit still for 5 minutes and you don't have any strategies ready to go, like it's probably not going to go very well.
Yeah, I'll say my experience was different than that. Only because I find it weird to like listen to someone's voice tell me what to do with my brain unless they're a therapist. So that was just me though. That's just me. Like,
I mean, I think the thing I really like, I don't love guided meditation. I like my Headspace one sometimes, but there's a lot of pauses in it. But I've definitely done guided meditations that I didn't like. I think the point I'm trying to make here is, it's not, you don't have to do guided meditation to get this, but like also just like doing research into like techniques or strategies. Like I think that's important as like pre-prep, because like I said, I think if you go into it like with really no idea of what you're doing besides like, I'm just gonna sit here for 5 minutes, it may not go so well. It may go well. I don't know. Maybe you're meditating prodigy, and you can just sit there for 5 minutes. Who knows?
Well, actually, one okay, I'm gonna pass on a really weird tip here. Are you ready? This one we didn't talk about this one pre-stream.
Oh, this is off script, is it?
This is a bit off script. But if you're ever looking for music or something to sort of like listen to sort of like keep sort of the listening part of your brain going, looking up music from video games is actually really good because it's specifically designed to not be distracting. It's specifically designed so that you focus on whatever it is that's in front of you on the video game. So like Skyrim and like Bethesda music is actually really good for this. It's actually even really good for studying because you need to focus on something else with your brain, but you need the noise.
Yeah. Hi, Emily. Oh my god, it's so good to see you. I missed you all so much. So much. I streamed building my PC last night forever, and though I finished at like midnight, I was mentally fried and took the opportunity to hold my basket of laundry, and it definitely helped me unwind. Yeah, that's definitely something. Meditation, something I've been working on and I'm still working on, is like having a morning routine that involves meditation and involves usually like some kind of exercise, like going for a walk. Having a morning routine and like sort of setting intentions for the day, and then having a like winding down routine for bedtime, because like last night I stayed up real late, like for me, because I was just very busy thinking about things and I didn't wind down for a very long time, which was not ideal. Yeah, Animal Crossing music, absolutely. That's absolutely. I tried meditating in bed and usually fall asleep. That's great though. I sometimes do use like meditative practices, especially grounding ones, to get myself to fall asleep. It's like, that's ideal. If you're so relaxed you can fall asleep, like, great job. A+ for you, you meditating prodigy.
Meditating yourself to unconsciousness.
Yeah. I really love listening to the LOZ Bottle soundtrack. Yep, I know what that means. Absolutely. Yep.
Legend of Zelda.
I knew that. I know.
Yeah, of course you did. I was just clarifying for people in the chat.
Absolutely. I like meditate when I wake up. Yeah. Sleep hygiene. Sometimes your laundry basket needs to be held though. Absolutely. Yeah. So guided versus unguided is one thing to explore what you want to do. I don't think it ever hurts to like try the guided one, and if it really doesn't work for you, that's totally fair. I've also tried to meditate into lucid dreaming, but I sometimes get sleep paralysis, which is very uncomfortable for me. Yeah, that's fair. I've never tried the lucid dreaming thing, and I've never gotten sleep paralysis personally, but it sounds rough.
So, the lucid dreaming thing, I saw this video a long time ago about how like one of the ways to practice that is to remember to try and turn light switches on and off in your dreams, and if you try and turn it on and off and nothing happens, that's how you know you're in a dream. But I'm just waiting for like a light bulb to burn out in my house and for me to like do it and then be like, oh, I'm dreaming.
Dreaming. God. we're in it. Wow, that's wild. Yeah. So then the next one I have is like sort of calming versus insight versus both. So this is more like we talked about River talked about like mindfulness practices. That's one I really like, which is sort of just like training your mind to kind of be quiet and let things go. Like, you notice the thoughts, you let them go, kind of thing. That's what I would call more like calming. And then I would say like insight is more like you're focusing on something to try to get clarity or better understanding or like connection or whatever. It's, making space versus reaching out, I guess, it would be mine for that. And some meditation styles have both. The stuff that I like to do does both. And it's usually
Yeah, sorry, my meditation is just like I just took like things and just mushed it together.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, honestly. Yeah. A couple times lately I've actually just been doing this thing where I take some seeds and I sprinkle them outside, like kind of near my front porch, and then I sit on my front porch and try to just be as still as possible to see what animals will come up. Because there's a chipmunk, I don't know if you guys know about this, and it jumped on me the other day because I was so still, and I was like, that's the goal. Is to be so still that animals don't think you're a animal.
I wanna become Snow White. That's the goal.
Yeah, but I don't want them to think I'm a human or an animal or anything. I want them to think I'm like a statue, because I don't want them to like think human food. That's bad. But statue.
I don't want them to become used to humans because I want to earn this.
Yes. Yes. But as soon as you move, they run away, which is good. That's how it should be. But so you just don't move. It's a very fun little practice, and I found it actually it's a very easy thing to focus on for me. Have you ever seen the video of the guy who holds birdseeds and his hand just stays still? Yeah, that's something that I think would be cool, but also there's
We're biologists. We don't like the idea of like attracting animals to us.
Like
they're being baited with the food.
Yeah. I think it's really cool, and like the part of me is like, oh my god, I would love to do that, but I also like don't necessarily want animals to be associating my front porch with food, which is why I try to put it further away where they already are. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, and then my last one was just like active versus sitting. Some people have a really, really hard time sitting and might benefit from doing meditative stuff that is like, walking meditation or doing yoga or something like that. That if sitting doesn't work for you, then that's totally fine. And also you're getting exercise that way, which is very good for your brain. So me continuing to feed the stray cat. I mean, the cat was domesticated before you came along. The animals out there are not domesticated, and I do not want them to be.
Yes. Yeah, the cats and the dogs of the world right now, we're sort of in charge of because that's our fault.
Yeah, like, but the chipmunk out there is wild, and I don't want it to like die because it thinks that I can just get food from me whenever.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the next, have we covered everything you wanted to cover in that particular section before we move on?
I think so. Yeah.
That was just our what is meditation section.
Yes.
That was probably one of the longest, if not the longest. And so the next thing I want to talk about, I'm gonna take a sip.
Okay, I'm taking a sip too.
Hydrate. Ugh. All right. Sippy. The next thing I want to talk about was just a little bit about the sort of attitudes around meditation and similar techniques, because it's one of those things. And Warrior Girl just said, "Oh, we're getting more hydrates. That's great. You can participate or you can not. It's up to you."
Oh yeah, I'll participate. I love hydrating.
Zip. This is what happens though. It's like it's like lemmings. Once one person redeems the hydrate, they all do. Double drate. Oh my god. And there's another one. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yep. Hang on, wait.
I love water. We love hydrating in this house. Chug, chug, chug. All right. God, what? I'm sorry. What was that?
I just wanted to be participating.
Yeah.
Warrior Girl doing warrior pose. I think that's very appropriate, but I also think that it might make hugging the laundry basket a little difficult with the arms, but you can also mix and mash things like I said. So
yeah. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was attitudes toward meditation and similar techniques, because I think it's a thing that's like not as widespread as it could be given how helpful it is. And
yeah,
so
I really sorry. I really feel that like my notes, and like you already know this, but my notes are like if you had asked me like 5 years ago, like, River, do you want to sit down and meditate? I'd be like, no. Because like I don't know, like I had this imagery that like meditation is something that people like do, that they think like, it's like the essential oils of like, stuff that like it isn't real, like it doesn't have like scientific basis, it doesn't like do anything, right? And so like I know that my own attitude towards it was like, this is crazy, like what are you talking about? And then I was sitting in a therapy session with one of the best therapists I've ever had, and she suggested that I do mindfulness, and she didn't put the word meditation in there, which I think was one of the things that got me onto this. And her thing was like, just feel like your toothbrush every morning. Like that was the thing. You focus on nothing, but like it's focus meditation, but it was like focus on what your toothbrush feels like, focus on like how minty the toothpaste is or whatever flavor toothpaste you use, kind of thing. And the improvement I saw in my life, even just doing that like 2 to 3 times, I was like, what? And so when I went to talk to her, she was like, yeah, no, it's a form of meditation. And I was like, you're saying that there's maybe actually something to this. So like I know that my attitude was like negative towards it until I gave it a try. But that doesn't mean that it would work for everyone still. Like it's still
absolutely,
But
I think it's the thing, it's much more worth trying than people are willing to give it credit for, especially because it is backed by science.
Yeah, like there is science behind it now,
Yeah,
yes.
but one thing I did like, and you sort of touched on this, is like one thing I want to talk about was just like issues people have with like, you know, alternative medicine and like alternative treatments. Is that like it generally in life, it's my belief that it's like if it's not hurting anybody and you can acknowledge, you know, like the sort of like weaknesses of it, then like do whatever you want. Because I think a big thing that can happen is like it's very easy even for me to be like, you know, something like crystals, it's like, oh, that's very like, there's zero scientific backing, that's very like, you know, woo woo, there's no way that does anything, but like some people find it helps, which in my opinion is probably more because they think it helps, so it helps, but it's really their brain. Yeah, this is something we talked about quite a bit yesterday, which is just like there is, you know, big placebo effects and a lot of this sort of stuff. And, you know, believing that something will help you will help you because you've already convinced that part of your brain that it's going to help, even though, you know, it's usually better if you can recognize that like it's not actually the thing doing it, it's you. One thing with scientists and study of meditation, they're very hard to do since you can't do properly prepared double-blind studies, and often there aren't enough people paying for studies, etc., etc. Yeah, I do think like just in general, a lot of this stuff could use a lot more scientific study, but it is really hard to do. But I have looked into it some, and obviously, like we say, like it may not help everyone and stuff like that, but just from personal experience and just like basically everybody I've talked to who has done it, I do think it's a very good thing to try. But I mean I do think there is some scientific backing to it. That's not to say, you know, in science in general, like there's no real being right. There just isn't. There's never
Well,
we're never 100% sure about anything ever.
yeah. And like uh is it okay if I give the placebo example
Yeah,
of that
yeah.
study done in Montreal? Okay,
Go
so
nuts.
there's a study done in Montreal. It happened a few years ago, and there's like a documentary on it. And they were treating these young children. I'd say that the age range was from about 8 to 12. And one of the children was this young girl who had terrible OCD picking. And so she had scars all over her face, all over her arms, all over her body because she was picking at herself constantly, causing wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one way that they saw to treat this was to put her into an unplugged CT machine. And beforehand, she went to see doctors, and the doctors explained to her, "We're going to put you into this. This is a new study that we're doing. We think it's going to help. You know, it's going to like, you know." They came up with some sort of mumbo jumbo, and then put her into the machine. And they told her, "Okay, you're going to have to come back like bi-weekly for 6 months, but at the end of that, we're expecting that you'll be better. Like you'll find that your symptoms alleviate, right?" And so the documentary follows her, and they come back to her months after she was done, and you can see on her face that like her wounds are still healing, but you can see that they're well into the healing process, and she doesn't have any new ones. And it was all because and like the parents were in on this as well, but like it was all because they told her it was going to work, and the placebo worked. And while there's a lot of like ethical concerns around this, like is this ethical? And where I'm going to bring this back to the
Mm-hmm.
meditation is if it works, if it alleviates your things, if it makes it better, that's fantastic. And if you can continue going with that and build on it, I think that that's makes your life better.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's the placebo effect.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't, my friggin' thing's being weird. Um Sorry if I'm sharing too many stories. During my freshman orientation, they had an hour-long seminar encouraging people to meditate. Yeah, I think that it's just in general, mental health should be more studied in schools. But I did want to talk about. So then is very low. Like not enough people in there, and often people doing the studies already think it would help. But I also agree. I would just be careful. Yeah, I do like I. Here's the thing. I do not think meditation necessarily, it doesn't necessarily fix anything. It's not meditation like makes you healthier. It's not necessarily that. It's that you are training your brain in a way that things will improve. Like I think I did look in some into some studies that talked about like, you know, it may even meditation may even like help with your like immune response. And I think the thing with that is it's not that like meditation is like some kind of medication that magically like tells your body to do things. It's that your brain is so ridiculously powerful that like just by what we think and how what neural pathways we develop, we can change a lot about our biology, which is really scary. Like for example, this one thing, another thing that my mom and I were talking about yesterday, which is like so we have pain centers in our brain, and you tend to feel emotional pain in the same places you feel physical pain, which and there has been, I think there was one study I was looking at one point where they found that for people with anxiety, giving them I don't totally remember the study, so like don't quote me on any of this, but they had like they were doing a study on people with anxiety, and they actually like gave them Advil as like which is like a pain reliever and stuff, and it actually helped reduce their anxiety. And I think like it's just all way more interconnected than I think we talk about it being. Like our brain controls everything, and we don't really think that we have any control over like our our physiology directly, but we can do a lot, I think, by just influencing how our brain functions, and I don't think we know enough really about that at all.
I think with you, if you
Studies.
do meditation,
Search.
regardless of like lower blood pressure, increased immune response, regardless of like let's just say that none of that's true. Like just for the sake of this example, let's say none of that's true.
Mm-hmm.
You will become at least more aware of what's going on in your brain, or you will gain something that your brain will perceive the world slightly differently. And that can be a really powerful experience, I think. So like
Yeah.
regardless of how it affects you physiologically, it definitely affects you mentally because that's what you're
Yeah.
practicing.
Yeah. And I think like at the core of it for me, it's like for me meditation is just like a practice of like listening to myself, which I don't think people do enough just in general. And so I support it personally. I do think I do think there is just so much we can still learn in terms of like the link between our psychology and just like the way we think and stuff, and our physiology, because I think they're a lot more interconnected than what we think. um yes, Messenger was talking about, we were talking about the podcast Sawbones before, like looking directly into the way studies are done. That's actually something I wanted to talk about later. We're not there yet. I agree that the brain has a lot of power. The only time where it hurts is when people shy away from traditional medicine and yeah, that is something where it's like that is where I think alternative treatments and medicine can be a problem. And I feel the same way about physical health as I do about mental health and stuff, which is like the more tools you have, the better. I don't think just only going to the doctor and getting medication for everything is the answer. But I also don't think that, necessarily, like, I just don't put all your eggs into one basket is what I'm saying. It's good to have thing. It's good to have options. It's good to have lots of tools. In my opinion, the more tools you have, the better, because usually there is like problems that may only be able to be solved by one thing, or it may be a combination of things that works. Like, it's all a mess. I don't think there's one solution to anything, basically. Smooch him. Give the bug a smooch him. Kiss the bug and smooch him. That's all I'm saying. I think it can be very easy to get into a very one-track mind with things in any direction. I think people who are very extreme about, like people who are against vaccination, I think it's the same thing where it becomes a very one-track mind of just like, this is just bad. And it's like, when the truth is, with anything, there's usually positives and negatives. Rule of thumb, if it's not expensive and it doesn't hurt you, go for it. Yeah, like, it's really just one of those things where it's like, there are frequently things that I do, like, vitamins I take and stuff, where I don't necessarily see a serious difference, but I'm like, it's not hurting. And it might help. So, why not?
Yes.
I was told to use different tools.
I need chopsticks for this. Anyways.
In the meditation tradition, I learned watching a mosquito bite you was practice. Oh, I totally get the idea of the, like, if you can see a mosquito coming, watch it land on you, watch it bite you, and like watch it fly away, you have like that can be a great practice, maybe, but I never want to do it. But it might
I
work
don't
for some people.
I don't want to have mosquitoes bite me, like, period. Can I
Yeah,
just
I don't want to turn this into a biology thing, but like mosquitoes have their own problems. Okay, you know what? Okay, look, I'm not gonna get into this because I'll like lose my mind. But I just want to say, like, a little preview for this week, because we're gonna keep talking about venom and stuff. Is that mosquitoes have venom?
Yes,
And it's
they do.
wild. It's I can't remember think of the word. It's like it makes your blood flow easier. I forget what the word is for that. But anyway, we're not gonna get into that.
Anticoagulant?
We're not anticoagulant. That's what it is. Mosquitoes have their own problems. Absolutely. We're here to talk about people problems, okay? But we're
I
not
really
gonna.
just
Yeah.
just quickly, I do think that we need like a WADS rant stream, but okay, that's all I had to say.
God, you just wait till we get to echolocation. I have a lot of
Oh
feelings about
gosh.
that. Anyway, it's fine.
I do have one more note here though. I
Sure.
also wrote down that like meditation is a very personal thing, and that while I think that like there are commonalities about what people will gain from certain types of meditation, if you gain like, something else or even nothing at all from like trying certain types of meditation, that's perfectly valid. Like it's again like a very personal thing. So that's all I just
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah. I think that's kind of
say.
what also makes it hard to do studies and stuff. It's because it's such a personalized experience that it's like, if someone finds that meditation also, helps improve, like, say, their chronic pain or whatever, that may not be the same, like, true for someone else because they're just set up differently. Different practices may not work for them. Like, so it's very hard, I think, to like do good studies on this kind of stuff, which sucks because I think we could really use more. Anyways, but and I think so that was just like the sort of like attitudes around alternative treatments in general. And the other thing I want to talk a little bit about, and this is something we talked about before and we'll talk about probably a lot of times, is we just as a society are really bad at working on our feelings because we just have this idea that feelings are bad and they make you weak if you have them. And it's just, I want to throw the whole thing out. Just
Yeah.
get
I
it
was
out of
having
here.
I was having an internet argument with someone else a long time, well actually not too long ago. And they were suffering under the impression that feelings can be like inherently like good or bad. And I was like, no, no, that's not how that works.
It don't be like that.
It don't be like that.
Go back to the podcast a while ago. Yeah, God, I honestly, every time I write out notes for a new thing, I'm like, this is something I've talked about in like 3 other streams, but it's just the principles end up being very similar. Yeah, we are really like, sort of like you say, feelings are not inherently good or bad, and they're not like, feelings are not who you are. They're a part of you, but they're not like,
Feelings are there to tell you something.
yeah, like you,
That's it.
and being able to like separate yourself from them a little bit, like not in terms of like, oh, that I'm just gonna ignore them forever and they're not part of me, but like being able to step back and see that, like, yeah, like the feelings are trying to tell you something usually, and being able to see it as that can be super duper helpful. I mean, you can't invent the world new. Certain things are bound to show up as your core values. Yeah, no, it's great. It's just one of those things where I'm like, God, I hope people aren't upset that I'm talking about this for the 17th time. um, but we just, yeah, this is something I talked about before. But again, like, you can't suppress feelings. It doesn't work. You can't pretend they don't exist. And acting like it's bad to have feelings when we all have feelings is literally hurting everyone. Sippy. So that's one thing. Um, and also, it's just like working on feelings and a lot of this stuff. Show us the waterproof. It's real cup. I'll just pour it all over myself. Right?
I think they refer to that as a drinking problem in Airplane, but
Sippy. Yeah, it's just also like working on feelings is uncomfortable, and people don't like being uncomfortable, but it's the more you learn to deal with being uncomfortable, the happier you actually end up being.
yes.
So, that's, and also just the fact that for whatever reason, we just tend to be so down to invest into other people, into other things, and we aren't invested in ourselves for some reason, because I don't know, we don't think we deserve it or something like that.
Well, like we'll do it in like tiny ways so we don't even realize we're doing it sometimes.
Yeah, like, it is my firm belief that at the end of the day, the only person you really, really need to worry about is you.
Yes.
And oftentimes, like making good relationships, considering other people, that stuff all actually serves you, even if it doesn't feel like it does because you're doing things for other people. That's still serving you. And, being good to other people often makes us happy. And so focusing on what makes you happy is usually the best way to go, just in general. And that is something I personally am still working on because I'm a people pleaser and I just want everyone to like me. And so I just want to do everything for everyone all the time. Yes. But I'm not going to do it. I'm done with that. No more. You're all on your own. God, yeah. I've been saying that's not my problem so much lately. So all the time.
It's good practice.
Like it's not a me problem. It's a you problem. So you're telling me my feelings are valid. Hell yeah. Yeah. But your feelings are your responsibility, not mine. I can help, maybe, but they're still on you, really.
Yep. I agree. I'm 100% on board with all this.
Sorry, nobody clicked that. Yeah. And basically, like, you improve not only your life, but the life of everybody around you when you work on yourself. You make everything better if you just work on yourself. So
you also find that people want to like be around you more if you just start working on yourself.
Yeah, people want to be around you more, and you will usually find people that are even better to be around. Because sometimes what happens, I think, is when we start working on ourselves, we realize there are people around us that are really awful or toxic, and they might even try to stop you from working on yourself because they want you to stay at their level. And that can be really hard to let go. But when you do, and when you find people who lift you up and you lift them up, it's amazing. So, like River. I pointed the wrong way. It's this way. That one. Yeah, one. Yeah, okay. You can see that they are trying to better themselves, which makes you want to better yourself. Yeah, that's exactly like what's happened lately. I've definitely said this before, but like the more that I work on myself and the more that like I feel good, I'm like, I just want to like spread this to other people. I want everybody to be this happy. And give it to all of you. That's why I'm here. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that one? That was a shorter section on my part.
Nope, I have nothing. I've said I said my piece.
Yeah, I mean, my next part was like personal experiences with meditation, but I think I just want to include that when we talk about how we meditate.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next thing I want to talk about a little bit was the benefits and risks of meditation. I actually want to talk more about the like risks than the benefits, but we can also go over some of the benefits really quick. I only have a couple listed.
You were much better with the risks because I was sitting there being like, there are no risks.
There are no risks. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, but
like, okay, those are fair.
Yeah. I mean, it like especially in my experience, it just like meditation has just been a tool that has like helped me stay focused. It's helped me figure out what I wanted to do, what I wanted to focus on. It's like made me happier because I have time to like relax and I give myself space to like work on things that are hard. And like, oh my god, in the last couple of months I have so much character development in the last couple months. My god, there's no posture check. That's because I have perfect frickin' posture.
Oh so, yeah
I've never slouched a day in my life. Actually, my posture's pretty good. My posture's pretty good. I don't tend to slouch here because it just moves me close to my camera. And I don't like that. You see what happens? So I just don't.
Hang on, wait, let me slouch.
I tend to lean back more. I'm sure my posture is not perfect because I kind of am like this sometimes, but I have perfect posture. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I just think meditation is a wonderful tool for self-growth in general. And there's lots of benefits that people have seen, but again, like there's a ton that range from like just stress reduction to even like maybe boost your immune function and maybe can help with like chronic pain and so on and so forth. But again, that's sort of a hard thing because there's no guarantee that it's going to do that for you.
Yep. But obviously like I'll just say like my therapist did tell me to do this focus meditation for a reason. Like the psychotherapy believes in sitting with yourself sometimes.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like they just don't call it therapy they just don't call it meditation because that of the like previous like aforementioned attitudes that some people have about it. They just don't call it that, but like it does something for some people at least.
Yeah, I think at like the very very, very base. It's like, even if meditation does nothing for you, literally just taking a step towards like, I want to work on myself is like wonderful.
Mhm.
But I mean, I do think meditation actually does help, but like just taking the first step towards like, I want to better myself is wonderful and leads you to
Yes.
so many nice places.
Yes.
And then I wanted to talk about the risks a little bit, because this is something, I'm going to see if I can pull up the Wikipedia article that I was looking in when I was talking about this, because they're like, in the same way that it's like, it's been touted to have lots of different benefits, and some of them get to a point where it's like, I'm not so sure about that one so much because it's kind of like out there. There's also, been claims and like mostly anecdotal stuff about like how it went really wrong. um, I'm sorry, Daisy. I'm looking at her. I just the rough thing about being on camera is I realize just how much I move my arms, which is bad sometimes because I can't put my arm above my head. But like, I'm here to dance.
It happens.
Anyways.
I look over here, and then I look over there, and then I look at this, and then I look over there. I'm sorry.
That's
Yes.
okay. Medication gives you a modicum of control it does not exist for. Absolutely. So some of the risks. Let me. Okay. Where did it go? I had it 5 seconds ago, and it's this one, right? So what the Wikipedia article said is meditation has been correlated with unpleasant experiences in some people, and I did actually look into those resources, and it was mostly like, yeah, this lady said that like after doing this thing she felt awful and it took years to get better and stuff like that. And also talks about one specific study that I wanted to talk about, which is, so there was a study they did, and I believe it was about 1,200 people, and they did a survey, and their conclusion was that in that study 25% of people reported unpleasant experiences associated with meditation. And I wanted to talk about this. We're going to get a little bit into like sort of what Messenger was talking about before, of like study design and stuff, and why even if there's like research into it and they're like, yeah, we make this conclusion, like you still have to basically be questioning it all the time, because you can make whatever conclusions you want from data, really, if you want to. Like, and a lot of times there can be problems with like the sample pool you used or like your methods or stuff like that. So I did want to talk about
self-reporting. I could rant
yeah.
on self-reporting.
That's one of the really hard things about biology, or not biology, psychology research. I can't talk. Is
You're doing
like,
great so
far.
much
of it is self-reporting, and like there's so many problems with self-reporting because people are ridiculous. Anyway, but so just looking at a little bit about the methods they did. So they did a survey, and first of all, they don't really talk about in the study how they actually like advertise the survey, but there's one thing where it's like, if you do an experiment and you go, we're looking for people who have had bad experiences with meditation, like who do you think you're going to get for that study? People who have had bad experiences with meditation. And so of course your results are going to say, oh, meditation, bad experiences, right?
And even the questions on your like questionnaire can be
absolutely
like,
and that
like
was
fashion.
Yeah, that was actually my next point. Is so in this survey they asked a bunch of questions about their meditation practice, and then they asked one question about unpleasant experiences. And the question was, have you ever had any particularly unpleasant experiences, like example, anxiety, fear, distorted emotions or thoughts, altered sense of self or the world, which you think may have been caused by your meditation practice? And I have some issues with that.
Right? Like, cause like who's ever gone to like therapy, for example, and like not had like a hard therapy session? Like,
yeah, not to mention that they said, have you ever experienced like had an unpleasant experience which you think may have been caused by meditation? And one thing about like this self-reporting and just like in general with us and feelings is we're so bad. We're so bad at remembering things. We are so bad at attributing our feelings to the wrong things. Like with the feelings thing specifically, a lot of the time what happens is we have a feeling and then we have to look back and be like, what caused that feeling? It's not like it's usually you guessing. So to be like, oh, you had a bad experience, during your meditation or after your meditation. Like, there's so many factors that could have gone into that. And even like unpleasant experience can mean so many different things. So like, um, I love it when people talk with their hands. Thank you. Pre-existing conditions, leading question. Yeah, it's totally a leading question, and I don't like it at all. When I was able to do meditation, I had only one bad experience. It was like someone grabbed my leg and tried to pull me to the underground. That sounds very uncomfortable. I
It
think,
sounds terrifying.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm not trying to discount the fact that I'm sure people have had experiences during meditation that have been really, really scary. I'm sure people have. But that can be for a lot of different reasons. And I think it's sort of the same thing of being like, oh, meditation, makes you like will help with your sickness. Just like being like meditation just does this. Like it's not that simple. And so I talked about that. There were some other studies that kind of had the same thing where it was like, oh, this many people said they had unwanted effects or experienced like fear or dread during this. And I do want to say, like, obviously there are some experiences that are so intense that like you should probably maybe pause your meditation practice and like maybe look into like therapy or something like that, because meditation is not equivalent to therapy by any means. But like one thing I also have trouble with this, just with the like unwanted effects and like fear and unpleasant experiences, is like in my experience meditation isn't that comfortable. And it's not really meant to be. Like, it's not meant to be you just feel good the whole time. It's
Mhm.
more about, like, most of the time, it's honestly quite uncomfortable, especially when you get started.
It's like doing
Um,
exercise. Like your muscles are gonna
mhm.
burn. Like you're
Yeah.
gonna be breathing. You're gonna be sweating. You're gonna feel
Yeah.
sticky and awful. But
Yeah.
then
Like, yeah.
there are gonna be long-term benefits of having done that
Exactly.
physical like
So I think
exercise.
there's a real problem with, did you have an unpleasant experience? Yes, it was unpleasant. Like, it often is for me. But afterwards I usually feel better, and overall it's been really helpful, because it comes back to the thing of like dealing with your problems and working through changes and growth and stuff. It's so uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Sometimes you end up being thrown in, like throwing yourself into the deep end without meaning to, and it sucks, and it's really hard, and sometimes you don't know enough to not do it, and sometimes it's way too much. Like, that's just how it goes. And so it's hard to just be like, well, if people had bad experiences, it means meditation might be bad, which is like, I don't think it works like that.
Well, and
Personally,
I think
God,
meditation
that
one
was a
of the
lot.
things
I
that
got heated. I got
I think meditation, like one of the things that it can do is it can cause your biases to fall off. And your biases are there because your brain's trying to protect you.
mm-hmm.
And it just like brains are dumb, like at the
Dumb.
best of times.
They try their
And
best.
like oh god, I had a bias fall recently and it was quite terrifying honestly because well, it sucks. It sucks when biases are removed because again, they're
Yeah,
protecting you from something.
absolutely.
But like I'll use a real world example that like we all are actually experiencing likely together right
Mm-hmm.
now, and just like a content warning, I'm going to talk about the pandemic for a moment here.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all experiencing something right now that is a bias, and that is like I think right now like the term coined is like quarantine, what's it called, quarantine tiredness, quarantine, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially what it is we're all stuck inside right now. We're all sort of like numb to the idea that there's a danger out there. We're all numb to the idea that like COVID-19 is dangerous and we should be like taking it seriously. And so you see people sort of like slipping. Not as many people are wearing masks. They don't think that masks are important, so on and so forth. That can get a bit heated, but one way or the other, this is because people's biases in their brains have built up to protect them. This is a terrifying thing. I used to wear a gas mask to the grocery store myself, and I had people laughing at me. And that was because people's biases were trying to protect them. They're laughing because on some level their brain is uncomfortable with the idea that they might be in danger.
Mm.
And so having something like that kind of bias, like that's an extreme bias I'm talking about, but having something like that fall off and realizing how scary a situation might be
Mm-hmm.
can be really hard to deal with. And that's why like Wads is saying here, like sometimes you might need to include a therapist at some point because when that kind of situation occurs, that can be really hard
I
to deal
highly
with.
recommend therapy just across the board if you have access to it.
Yes.
The lady who was leading the meditation found out later there was some tunnel with electricity cables and stuff, so that my meditation could be affected by that. Yeah, brains are also so ridiculous. Like I'm trying to remember. There was this guy who figured out. So there was, God, what am I? It was basically, I believe, people kept thinking they were seeing like apparitions out of their peripheral vision, and this scientist started having that happen. And because he was like, okay, no, like that's not, like it's not an apparition, he actually found out that, I believe, he realized it was only happening when the air conditioner on, and I believe it was something along the lines of the air conditioner was producing like a sound at a frequency that was doing something to his brain, where his brain was producing these images. And it's like, brains are freaking wild. We don't know anything about brains. We think we do. We don't know anything.
Brains are dumb though.
Their brains are dumb. They're crazy, but it's just like, it's so, like, there's even just in any environment, like my mom talks about this sometimes, where it's like sometimes she gets in an environment and she just feels herself like tense up and she's not really sure why. And it's like, our brains do so much without us knowing, that it's so easy for like something imperceivable to our conscious brain to like happen, and your body goes on alert, or your body is like, we're in danger, or like something along those lines. So it's just, God, brains are dumb.
Brains are dumb.
That's the conclusion.
If there's anything that we take away from this meditation, brains are dumb.
That's the whole thing. Anyway, yeah, but I think just another like thing, little like more about the like risks thing that I wanted to address is, I think things to know before going into it is like being aware of your expectations, because again, like we've been talking about, like meditation, first of all, there's no one right way. So if a way is not working for you, it has nothing to do with you. That's just, it's something that doesn't work for you, and that's okay. And oftentimes, like for me, I felt this happen where it's like, the more I start digging into the issues and stuff I want to work on, the more I feel awful for periods of time, because that's just part of going through it, and like you have to process the emotions, which sucks. But so like if you are expecting to get into this or get into any sort of self-growth thing with the expectation that it's not going to suck sometimes, like you're gonna be disappointed. And like meditation, again, it's just a tool. It's not like magic. It's definitely not therapy. All right, gonna go head out. Have a lovely podcast. Thank you so much for coming, Messenger. Always appreciate your input on things. But again, like meditation is a tool and it can help you. But it can be really uncomfortable, and it can take some figuring out, for sure.
Yes. Very much. You have to sort of like I started into it via TV show, honestly.
Yeah. Do you want to?
And then I just sort of mashed things together.
Do you want to take a break right here? Actually, okay. I have one more point, I promise, and then
okay.
And then we'll take a break, because I have to pee also. But the other thing is just like,
it's all the water drinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Is knowing, I think, your own limitations and your boundaries, because again, sometimes you'll get into like you're digging into your brain and your issues, and you'll come up against something that's like huge and horrible, and you're like, I don't think I could do this right now. And it's good to know when to step back and to take time, and also like when to seek therapy, and stuff like that. Absolutely, because diving deeper into things is not always the solution. That's all I want to say. Anyway, I'm
laughing because that's like the like Ontario thing, like know your limits, stay within it.
That's it. Know your limits, stay within it.
That's like an Ontario thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't that like about gambling or something?
Yes, it is.
Great. Okay. We'll be back in a few minutes. I might go grab a snack really quick, but like maybe 5 minutes or so. All right. We'll be back in a bit. I'll put on some music for you lovely folk. Oh, that's crackly. Some crackly goldfish. All right, we're back. I'm gonna make sure you can hear us real quick. So I do tech stuff. Oh, I also have my mouse right on River. River got goldfish, so this is what we're doing now. We're crunching. We're crankling. All right.
I don't think you can hear the crunching.
No, not the crunching. Just the crackling.
Okay.
Just that. Just grab a handful. All right. Anyways. So we're back again. So we just finished up talking about sort of the benefits and risks and stuff of meditation. And now we're gonna move into like sort of the final I did make a bunch of points this morning, so I actually have a whole bunch now. But about how do you actually meditate? Because we talked all about it. We talked all around it. How do you actually meditate?
Do you want me to start?
Yes.
Okay.
Go nuts.
Yes.
How do
Yes,
you
please.
specifically meditate these days?
All right. So, these days I do something different, but it's okay if I talk about like the journey of how I got there.
Absolutely. We love
Okay.
we love character development.
Yeah, there's character development, 4-part harmony. It's a thing.
Amazing. A beautiful soundtrack.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, obviously at first I tried doing the focus meditation with the toothbrush, but I'll be honest, while I did see improvements with that, I couldn't maintain it. For whatever reason, I don't know, I just couldn't do it. And so I sat down with myself and I actually thought, okay, all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit in a quiet room and I'm going to try and like still my mind and just like think of nothing, like the stereotypical meditation thing. And
Right.
so I sat down, I tried to do that, but I have this problem where, as I was talking about earlier, where I have ADHD and you can see me like I'm swinging in my chair, I'm looking all over the place. Like I have such a rant because I had a lady tell me one time, "Oh, well, to treat your ADHD, just clear your mind." And I don't know if this lady understands how ADHD works, but I just kind of laughed at that. And there's no like you can't do it. You just can't do it. Like at least for me, it's too hard. And so I kind of gave up on the thing for a while. And then I was watching a TV show, and I learned about this way that you sort of like focus on like the inside of your hand. And you kind of talked about this on your stream before, but like you focus on like what you feel the inside of your hand would feel like. So where like the bones and tissue were. And so I tried it and I tried to like visualize it and I ended up with like this tingly sensation in my hand. And I don't know if that's actually it, but whatever, it works for me. And I try and sort of like focus and like spread it around my hand, spread it up my arm, and then when I manage to get it all the way up to my shoulder, I try and do the other arm, and then I try and do my head, and I've got my head and I'm starting to work on a leg nowadays. But the nice thing about it is that it's focusing for me on a tactile sensation, and I will inevitably ADD off of trying to do this. I will be sitting there and I'll be like up to my elbow with like tingly sensation, and then I'm like, I wonder what I'm gonna have for dinner tonight. And then I catch myself and I'm like, okay, well, that's not what we're trying to do here. So we're going to go back to what we were doing. And because it was a tactile sensation I was focusing on, I was better able to sort of jump right back in where I left off. I can just reimagine what that tingling sensation felt like up to my elbow, which is really nice for me because I was better able to like forgive myself for being ADD, essentially, for ADDing off of this. And it also, like I said, like it allowed me to start where I was, so I didn't feel frustrated that like I was set back, essentially. I didn't feel set back at all. And so I started doing that, and then recently I've started adding my slightly messed up version of chakras because well, I don't know if I really believe that I'm opening my chakras, but I like the mental idea and the mental exercise of working through each one.
For sure.
And like I'll just mention like the 7 chakras. I'm not going to mention each one unless people want to know more about them, but there's a like survival and fear, there's pleasure and guilt, willpower, shame, love, grief, truth, lies, insight, illusion, and then the last one sounds a little crazy, but cosmic energy and earthly attachment. And I have not gotten through all of these. I just actually last night managed to get through the shame one, which is the 3rd one. But it's nice because like I can sort of like pick it up and I can sort of like do my thing, and then whenever I feel like I've reached my limit, like I just can't do it anymore, my ADD or whatever it is might be just causing me to be uncomfortable, or I'm not feeling like I'm getting anywhere, I can just put it down, we'll come back to it later kind of thing.
Mhm.
So that's what I've been doing.
For sure. Yeah, so what I did for, like, this round of meditation and like doing it consistently for me is like round 3, I think. And usually what I do is I do guided meditations on Headspace. I really like the guy's voice. And I found those worked for me mostly, especially because like it was kind of like I don't really know what I'm doing, so give me some guidance. But then lately I actually started doing this thing instead where I would just set a timer on my phone and I would go sit outside and just like basically I've been practicing mostly what I do is like the mindfulness thing, and particularly trying to like basically just have a clear mind, which is really really hard, by the way. I can do it. I've been doing it for like several weeks now, and I can do like maybe a minute on a good day. But it's and like just it just really like being in the moment. I find for me being outside helps because I find the sounds of nature to be wonderful and very calming, and so just like being outside and listening to the birds is really helpful. Um and so it is kind of in a way like I don't maybe necessarily focus on it, but that it like it's something for my brain to hear. I also so the something I want to get into a little bit like is just sort of like my sort of steps of this kind of stuff and what I would maybe recommend to other people to try in my style at least. But I really like grounding techniques, which we'll talk a little bit about later, and also like focusing on my breathing, especially because I'm someone who I have anxiety, but like it's fairly mild in the fact that I don't have like general anxiety. It's just like certain things really cause it for me, like like to the point where I have panic attacks sometimes. And so focusing on breathing is like a big thing that's very good for like calming down. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But basically what I do these days is either I sit outside and I put on the timer and I do that. Sometimes I actually just like put on a stopwatch just to see how long I can go because it's fun. But then lately also I've just been doing the thing where I go and like sprinkle a little bit of seed outside and I just like kind of stare at that spot and like wait. So I kind of just go through the couple. That's what I do. Um, but like for in terms of like recommendations or like sort of places to start, my step one, and I'm gonna sound like a broken record for the rest of my life, but like you're gonna be uncomfortable, and like you need to not only be okay with that, you need to embrace it. You need to be like, I want to be uncomfortable, I want to have this discomfort, and I want to work through it. Like you gotta get in there. You can't just be like, well, like I'm gonna try it, and then when it gets uncomfortable, you stop. You have to commit to the discomfort. You gotta be like, I'm ready for you. I want it. Let's go. And I do think doing some it like finding what works for you requires some researching and some trial and error. Like I think listening to this is probably a good place to start because you might start to get an idea of like the different kinds and the different stuff that might work for you, and sort of that kind of thing. I really like the sound of waves crashing on the beach. Oh, me too. I really like whale sounds also. I'm big into the whale sounds. I
Whale
really
sounds put me to sleep.
don't like white noise or any of the noise. I don't know why. It just makes my brain feel like it's rattling in my head and I don't like it.
I listen to rain sounds when I go to sleep at night.
Rain
We
sounds
were
are good.
listening to rain sounds on a car for a while, and then it turned into rain sounds in a forest, and now we're at rain sounds on a tent.
That's nice. That's good. You're going through the world, the rainy
Mhm.
world. Yeah, rain sounds really good. Yeah, I don't know. I feel the same way. Yeah, about white noise. I also feel the same way about ASMR, where it just makes my brain feel weird, and I don't really like it very
It's
much.
not a pleasant experience,
No, it's
yeah.
not a pleasant experience. But obviously it does work for some people, and this is when the like trial and error thing comes into play because it might work for you, might not. Um, and it might be like trying guided first and seeing if that works for you, and if it doesn't, no problem, move on. And then my other thing is like this is something that I like to do is so one thing I've just been doing in general because A, I'm forgetful, and B, this helps me not focus on things is I do something called the technique is called externalizing. I picked it up, I believe, from a podcast, and I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's a very good podcast. But basically, externalizing is like every time you have a thought, and it's either something you want to remember, like a task you need to do, or it's something that you like is bothering you, instead of just being like, oh, I'll remember that, or like, oh, I'll just like, I'm gonna think about it, you literally just like write it down, and then it's dealt with in a way. I find white noise grating. Oh, water. um this is a similar, like, there's a technique that I also really like in mindfulness meditation, where it's like, it's called noting, and basically what you do is, you sit, when you have a thought, you say, okay, I see you, you've been noted, like, move along, basically. And you do that over and over again. There's lots of different ways to do that. And sometimes it can be really hard to do, but it's basically that, but taking it a step further to where you are literally, like, physically noting it down. And that helps me, because I just tend to be forgetful, and so putting reminders in my phone, or like notes in my phone of like stuff I want to do, can be super helpful. And then also, it's like, if something's bothering me, I write it down, and then it's like I can focus on what I'm doing, because I've like done a little, like, I've dealt with it, and then later I can come back to it when I'm ready to like actually work through it.
Yeah. And if I can add here, one of the things that I found really good for meditation is, so like, especially with like the chakras that I was talking about, like, for example, like the first one, the one that is like survival and it's blocked by fear, and you have to like sit there and like focus on what you're fearful of, and then sort of like accept your fear and move past it. I find that I'm just generally much more like present and aware when people are like saying or doing things around me, probably because my brain isn't so busy in the background like buzzing away
Yeah,
with all these like little things that it doesn't need to be fearful of. Like I,
exactly.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't need to be scared about like half the things that I'm scared of every second of every day. Eventually I
Yeah.
will need to deal with it, but like
Yeah.
it's not useful
Yeah,
right now.
yeah. I think the thing with me for externalizing is I can work with like definitely stuff like that too, where it's just like, instead of holding it in your brain, you just move it out from your brain and put it somewhere physical. Because then you're not forgetting it, and you're not dealing with it, but you're just not dealing with it right now because you're trying to be present. So
Yeah.
that's, and I also think, just in general, if you can do this, if you're still working on like figuring out what your issues is, like, no worries, but if you can kind of like go over yourself and even like write down, because I just love writing stuff down. I'm a words person. I write everything. But like, if you know there's issues that you have to work on, or stuff that may come up when you're kind of alone in your mind, like, being aware of that and like noting that and deciding what you're going to do beforehand can be very helpful. Because it's like, for me, there's some issues I'm working on, and sometimes on a particular day they're just too big for me to want to like get into it on that particular day. So it's one of those things that's like, today I'm just going to note that one and let it go, where it's like another day I might be like, that's one I want to sit with today.
Yeah.
So just, I love planning. It's all about planet. We're planning, we're researching. Okay. So that's kind of sort of step one, like before you're even getting into meditation. And then again, this is my sort of breakdown, what I like to do, which is, I think step one for me is sort of like, this comes back to, again, the mindfulness meditation, but it's just like the clearing space in your brain. Something we talked about, again, we've talked about this several times, but particularly in the communication Mindset Monday, is like, there's like, good communication with other people and with yourself comes down to, you have to be able to listen. And the first step of listening is you have to shut up and be quiet. That's step one. So it's the same thing, in my opinion, in your brain, is you have to just work on like just listening, and not trying to like interact with stuff, not trying to be like, why am I feeling like this, or like, oh, I need to do this, like, just existing, doing a heckin' shh. Yeah, you say, brain, shush, this is a library, be quiet. So that, like, and that's just, again, comes back to the like being able to like separate yourself a little bit from your thoughts, just in the like, those are thoughts, they're part of me, but they not like, they are not me, they're not necessarily reality, they're just thoughts. And they're stories you're telling yourself, which means they don't have to be true, which is the really wonderful part about a lot of this. Pretty much, yeah, everything you tell yourself pretty much does not have to be true, at least the way you're thinking about it.
Yes.
And again, I like the analogy of like, this is one that the Headspace uses, which is like mindfulness meditation, like this first step. It's like, the ideal is like you're watching clouds go by, as opposed to like you're running around in the middle of a busy highway, like chasing some cars and trying to avoid others. And like, that's not what you want to do. You want to just be able to just listen and be quiet and not, you know, get dragged away by every single thought like you're a dog and it's a squirrel.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and then this is something where it's like, if you can, you know, do the like just think about nothing thing, that's great, but like a lot of people, including me, can't most of the time, and so it's totally okay. And so being able to focus on something is really helpful. I really like focusing on the breath, but like doing something like River talked about, which is like you focus on your hand and you almost give yourself a task of like, I'm going to try to spread this up my arm. That's wonderful. You know, focusing
That's my
on
grounding technique.
Yeah,
That's my calm the mind and just calm it down.
River
and we're going to focus on this.
Yeah, and those are all just like calming, centering, focusing things. You can focus on a particular object if that helps you. One thing also, this is just like a random, hey there, if I had to guess your names, names, names of jobs. That's anyways. Sorry, one second here. What was my next point? The next point I wanted to talk about was basically. Oh, this is fun. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, I had a little aside basically about breathing, which is I think people think we have this idea like there's a big thing about like deep breaths is good, and they are, except for the fact that often when people do quote unquote deep breaths, they go like it's which is not helpful. The point of like the point behind like doing deep breaths is like to calm yourself down, but a better way of calming yourself down I have found with, you know, your breath is instead of trying to breathe more deeply, trying to breathe more slowly works a lot better, which usually means for me it's like taking in air at a much slower rate. And this actually, what you're doing then is, because if you breathe in and out really fast, what you're doing is you're giving your lungs less time to actually pull oxygen out of the air that you're taking in. So if you slow down your breath, you're actually giving your body more oxygen, which can help your brain calm down, because when your brain does not have access to oxygen, it can be a real problem. If I had to guess your name, lift his hand at 19. I'm pretty sure you got that wrong on every single count, but
I'm just honored that you think I'm 22.
good try. Flattery. I like the meditation where you focus on each body part and they walk through the breathing exercise. Yeah, that is a technique that I really like to use to go to sleep with, which is one where I lay down and I start like thinking about like my toes, and I just thinking about them becoming really heavy and like almost sinking into the mattress, and then I move to my ankles and do the same thing, and then I move like to my calves and knees and so on and so forth. And that really works for me because it makes me feel very relaxed, which obviously doesn't work for everyone, as we have talked about previously. River.
Yes. Because I don't want to imagine being eaten by my mattress.
Which is totally valid. It doesn't work for everybody.
I need my mattress in my safe space where I don't get eaten.
Again, and it comes down to like the trial and error and stuff like that. But I find that one really good. You just mentioned toes and ankles. God, I hate talking about toes. But head to toe is like, there is another thing. We're not there yet, but it's called body scan, basically, where it's like you go down from your head all the way to your toes. Okay, that's nope. You're this close, Ace. This close. Anyways. So, oh yeah, the next thing I wanted to talk about was like, so in my mind, once you sort of can clear the space for it, the next thing you want to do is like, say, in your, you know, you're watching your thoughts, you keep running into the same one, and maybe the same one is kind of catching you every time, like that's the one that you're having issues like just letting go. Also, River, you have kind of half gone out of frame, just so you're aware. There you go, you're back in it now. Thank you. I probably just wanted to have a laugh. Yeah, just to be clear, Ace, like that's not really the kind of jokes I like to see in my chat, so please don't do that again. Thank you. Anyway, so digging in deeper, um usually when something especially upsets us, it like we'll run into it again and again and it will catch you every single time. So like say, you've now found an issue that you're like, okay, this one needs to be dealt with. And so for me, for example, one thing I that is a big issue for me is when I feel rejected in any way. So this can be like, it's gotten a lot better, but in the past it can be like I didn't get a job I really wanted, or even lately it can be like I feel like a stream did not go as well as I think I wanted it to, or like whatever. It can be a lot of different things, but just like in a situation where I feel like I failed in some way, or like I'm not good enough, or like whatever, that's the thing. And so like say you got that thought, like say I this did happen to me quite a few years ago, where there was a job I really wanted and I thought I was guaranteed to get, and then I just didn't, and it like really broke me for a little bit there. But like, so say the thought is like, why didn't I get that job? Like, why wasn't I good enough to get that job? That's We're gonna work with that one. So I think like step one is sort of, and also River, if you have anything to say, like feel free to stop me at any point, because I could just
All I could say is rejection
keep
sensitive
talking.
dysphoria is a real thing. Like it's
Yeah,
very valid.
that's fair. In all seriousness, this is a great topic. Funnily enough, I've actually done a little bit of meditation previously back in high school, and the thing you mentioned about going from toes, ankles, calves was something my whole class did. That's cool. I really wish we had more of that kind of stuff happening in schools, where they taught you more about mental health than they do. I mean, I think it's getting better. I mean, I haven't been in elementary school for a number of years at this point, so I don't know
Tell
what
me
goes
about
on anymore. But
it.
anyway, so we're to go back to the like, so say I'm like, why didn't I get this job? Why wasn't I good enough for this job? That's so step one is like noticing it when it comes up. That's when you're like, okay, this is clearly something I need to work on. And then step two for me is like, usually when things feel really bad, the first step for me of dealing with it is literally just sitting with the feeling, to be like, because often I think what happens is when people, including me, have feelings, as soon as it starts to feel uncomfortable, you're just like, haha, nope, we're not dealing with that, we're gonna move on. And so being able to just sit with it, and to feel uncomfortable, and to feel the badness you need to feel for a little bit, is really good. This is not meant to be a spiral where you just get deeper and deeper into the feeling and you just are running this is like the bad version of like mantra meditation. Like, you don't want to be like telling yourself I'm not good enough repeatedly as you go down. It's literally just, and this can be again a focusing thing. Like one sort of focusing technique I really like for this is like, so when you're having that feeling, you're sitting in it, like where do you feel it? And this is one where you can do like a sort of body scan, which is basically you go from head to toe and you like kind of like literally like scan down your body, and you're like, okay, like this feels bad here. Like I feel stress and anxiety and stuff. I feel it in my chest most of the time. Sometimes when I'm really upset, I feel like I have strep throat. Also, like my throat starts to really hurt. And usually, if I've found something really really good, a really good issue that's like getting me, I start to tear up. Those are like my things. So it would be like, okay, like my scan is like, okay, I am tearing up a little bit. Like maybe my throat is hurting a little bit, and like my chest feels tight. And so that is a really good way to keep yourself, I think, from just being like, well, why wasn't I good enough? Why wasn't I good enough? Thank you for the follow, Ace. Welcome, even if I don't like your toe jokes. Good to have you here. Oh, we got a sip because I keep talking so much. But so being able to be like, where are you feeling the stress? That can be a good like sort of focusing thing. And this is a good stage to also remember that like your thoughts are just thoughts. They are not you. They are frequently not true. The things we think about ourselves particularly are often not true. Um and so like the next sort of thing for me would be like identifying thoughts around it. And even if you can, going deeper into it, like, and which is something you want to do probably kind of slowly, but usually for me it's like if I'm scared of something, I just follow because you're cool. Apologies before, but that was just me being like, no problem. I appreciate that as long as you can recognize that when this isn't the place for that or whatever, that's all good. um but being able to like going deeper is like the scary part, but it's like it's my favorite part, is like excavating issues and trying to figure out what the like core of it is. So sometimes what I'll do is like if I'm scared of something, like say I want to apply to a different job, but now I'm scared that I'm going to get rejected from this job. I go, okay, well, what happens if it does happen? And most of the time, what it comes to is like, I apply for this job I really, really want. What if I don't get it? Well, it would suck, and I would be okay.
Can I just build on that for a second?
Absolutely. I've been talking a lot.
I do something similar, but slightly different.
Absolutely.
So our brains may be dumb, as we were talking about earlier in the stream, but they fear something, or they are scared of something, or you're having like this feeling for a reason because your brain learned to have this to protect you or reward you in some situation before. And so when it comes to something that like I'm fearful of, one of the things that I try and do, because again, like this is just one of the things that I do with my chakras, is I think to myself, okay, well, I fear this thing because it has already happened. Like I don't have to sit there and like in your example, like I can sit there and yes, imagine like, okay, well, what happens if like I don't get the job? No, not getting the job and being rejected has already happened to me. Like if I just look back at
Yeah,
myself, if I look
absolutely.
at my past and I say there's evidence that I continued to like whatever it
Absolutely.
is that I'm fearful of, whatever it is that my brain thinks it's protecting me from, I didn't need that. I was fine. My life continued. I did the things that I like to do. My hobbies continued. The people who I love were still in my life. Like this is like there's no reason for me to fear this thing. I was fine. And so I do like I personally do something slightly different just because like I try and not necessarily imagine okay, I've already not gotten the job or like I'll be fine if I don't get the job. I'm just like no, I've already had that happen.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. I think that is definitely like this is something we talk about with like habits and stuff too, where it's like being able to look back on previous times where you got through stuff was really good. For me, my best form of meditation is when I'm feeling anxious, worried. I actually listen to a podcast. I like to lay in bed, close my eyes, and just listen to people talk. I think it's got to do with the brain being drawn to two or more people feeling good and having a laugh. Yeah, that's totally fair. Like connection is a big thing for us because we're a social species. Also, you did redeem an animal noise, and usually you suggest what animal you want. So if you want to suggest one, go for it. And if you don't, I'll just come up with my own.
how about some echolocation?
I legit thought it would redeem. No, no. Oh, no. No, no, no. This is. I will make you an animal noise. Yeah, I do biology streams also. So this is,
How about a goldfish?
That's the sound that goldfish make. But if you want a specific animal, I'll give it to you. But yeah, absolutely. I think like the thing for me, like being able to be like something like this already happened and I was fine is great. I think for me, do a llama. God, I don't even know what llamas sound like. I just feel like they'd kind of be like a
just spit,
like a sheep kind of, but probably maybe deeper. Like, there you go.
They also scream. So
they scream. I will die if I scream. I will shred my throat. Anyways, but I think for me to, like, I think that's really great. Like for me personally, I think what can be really helpful is I tend to catastrophize. I'm a big catastrophizer. I like to freak myself out with like what if this horrible thing happens, and so I think it can be really helpful. Like you don't necessarily want to put yourself through that before it even happens or be like that's going to happen, but being like I find for me sort of having like a plan for if it does happen does help me to be like, even just to be like, if this thing happens, like I'd feel bad for a little bit and then I'd like pick myself up and move on, and being able to be like I would be okay in that scenario is really helpful to me. Yeah, and also just to sort of build on your point of like brains and stuff like that and fear, it's like our brains are literally designed to help, like to make us survive. That's the point. So everything you're afraid of is because your brain is like, well, that was bad for your survival, so we're not going to do that again. And because at the core we're animals still. We're still animals, so we're always driven, especially we are driven by fear of like stuff like not being liked, not being good enough, just basically anything where we would be like excluded from a group, because in the wild if you're a herd animal and you're excluded from the herd, you die. That's literally it. So
Yes.
some part of our brain is still there being like, I have to protect you from everything because it literally comes down to our survival, which is why I think it can be helpful to be like, I see what you're trying to protect me from. I get it. I appreciate it. Let's like it's okay. You don't need to protect me. I'm fully with you. I'm a big catastrophic overthinker. With you being into science, it doesn't shock me that you think of catastrophic situations. Since the funniest thing about science is really explosive chemical reactions. I mean, I think science is mostly about like you're gonna be wrong 90% of the time. That's what science is. That's what research is. It's like most of the time you find nothing. Anyways, um, so that was kind of my like digging deeper. There's a lot more stuff you can do, but I think and I think the even the chakra thing can be really good for that because you can just use it as like a filter of like is this because I am afraid and like what am I afraid of? Is it because, I'm feeling guilty about something? Is it because I'm telling myself something that's not true? Like I do believe that like again, like fear is the first chakra, right? I think
Yeah.
I strongly believe that everything we uh do either comes down to love or fear, which means pretty much everything bad comes down to fear because it comes down to survival because that's what we're built to do is survive.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like you
Yeah.
have to go if you do like my style of like following the chakras, you
Mhm.
have to do them in order.
Which means fear first.
Okay. I realize as I'm sitting here that I'm saying have to. You don't have to do anything, but and like things work differently for everyone. But honestly, it makes sense to me that you have to do fear first, then guilt, then shame, because of the like as especially as you get to like the lower levels, you realize, oh, okay, I needed to work through my fears. That when inevitably another fear showed up here, it was much easier for me to like just work through that and then work on the chakra that I'm working on.
Yeah,
What's your
sure.
opinion on cilantro? I love it. Burma ban.
Get out of here. You're not welcome here. You're wrong. I do find it funny when people what's the wrong thing of the two plus something. I think that happens a lot less than you might think it does. I unfortunately for you. Things don't generally blow up in science. I opened the wrong thing. I'm having a good time. Yeah, so I think that's kind of like one of the ways you can be like, what is the core of this? What am I afraid of? What am I trying to protect here? And then I think the next point for me, and it's this is kind of the same thing, but like that was more like digging yourself into the hole, and this is more like digging yourself out of the hole. Oh, it absolutely does. Oh, thank you for the follow, my worst enemy. It never happens. I'm sure it happens sometimes, but probably more in movies than anything else. So the next point is sort of like the healing part, right? And I think a big part of this, and this comes back to like when you have identified like, this part of me is trying to protect me from rejection because I'm scared that I'm not good enough and people won't like me and people will leave me. That's my base fear, it seems, is just people are going to leave me, which is a survival thing. I'm good at digging myself into holes. You got a big shovel or but I think once you have identified like this is a thing that is trying to protect me, you can then decide like if it is still serving you or not. Because everything we do, once again, even if it feels bad, it is still serving a purpose, which is often trying to protect you and trying to keep you safe and comfortable. And it's why people won't work on things or will stay. Like it's, there's people that you're like, this person just loves being miserable. Like they just want to be miserable. That is because they have been in that state for long enough that it feels comfortable to them. Even if it doesn't feel good, it's easier to stay there than try to work on it to get better. Because, if everybody just thinks you're miserable already, nobody expects you to like be happy or to do things for them or anything. So it's easier, it's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be good to be like, I see that you're trying to protect me from rejection, but I can handle rejection. And so you don't need to protect this part. Like, thank you and move on. I hate being around miserable people. Yeah, I don't like being around people who are just like energy suckers. Oh, thank you so much for the follow, Sid. I'm gonna mess this up if I try.
Sid.
I'm just gonna say Sid. I can do French. I can't so much do more like Spanish type stuff or like Latin languages. I'm sorry. I can't. If you had a French name, I could do it. Anyways, but I think like, and I think it does take some zooming back to be like, this is kind of like, this is maladaptive, like this isn't helping me become better and be happier. Which is when you need to be like, I get it, we're letting that go. And it can be really hard, but to like, you can even go so far as to be like, I'm going to, it's the same sort of thing where it's like, I'm going to embrace discomfort is like the same thing where it's like, if I'm going to embrace situations where I may very well be rejected, or, you know, insert whatever thing you want to do. And the more you practice that, the easier it becomes. And then you get to do all those things you always thought were too scary, but really wanted to do secretly, you know, like start streaming on Twitch, perhaps.
I don't know what that means. I don't. Yeah.
Never heard of that. I really like the vibe here. Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad. That's
live.
Here.
They live the vibe.
I really live the. That's fair. That's even better.
I live the vibe.
I want to live the vibe too. It's super late here in Korea. I'd like to lurk though. No problem at all. I'm just happy you're having a good time. It's super cool that people across the world get to watch me. I think that's amazing.
Now I don't know if there's a good way for me to like segue into this, but I have one of the chakras that I thought was kind of interesting, and I think you and I kind of did a little rant session about it last night. So is it okay if I just pivot for a second to something else?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the one that I thought was really interesting, and of course I haven't reached this one yet, is the insight illusion one. So it's the insight chakra, but it's blocked by illusion. And my note here is, it says, as silly and cliche as it sounds, everything is an illusion. And this one I'm really excited to get to because well, I like, if you okay, it's cliche, but if you think about it, yes. And the biggest illusion that it talks about often is the illusion of like differences, that like everything is different when really like we actually have a lot more similarities. And I don't know, I just wanted to talk about that for a minute because it's something that I just like to think about even outside of meditation. Like, you know, it's good to like practice that kind of like, honestly it comes down to like empathy in like your everyday life. Like when you're walking around, you see someone who's like being really grumpy, you could be like, and like, you know, you normally would be like, ah, that person, like, who needs that person? But you could be like, no, like they could have something going on in their lives. They have a life just like I do, and like we don't know what the situation is that's causing them to feel like that today. So anyways,
it's hard to see what's going on in chat. I like you have your lab coat and glass. God, first of all, I mean, as you I'm sure know this isn't actually a lab coat. I like this shirt a lot actually, because it's just like one of those big like overshirts, but like this plus my beanie just makes me look like a lesbian mechanic, and like that's what I'm here for. That's the vibe I like.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. And I wish I could not wear glasses. I'm so friggin' blind. Also, haha in Korean. I love that. Maybe it's an illusion that regular clothes are actually in a lab coat too. But you don't know. We just don't know. All we can see is like this. So like we don't know what they're wearing underneath.
Nope.
This took a turn and I want to get away from it. Anyways.
It's definitely a lab coat. Yes.
Yeah. I used to have a lab coat. I think it'd be too hot to wear on stream all the time. Anyways. And then so we talked about like on my side, you know, how is stuff serving you and when and deciding when it's not so you can move on. And I think the other part, it can be like, what do you need to move on from this? Because one thing my therapist has been like, one thing we talked about in the last little bit was like, I have some stuff like from the past, particularly high school, because high school was just a rough time on me, for various reasons, where there's still, and just various other things that have happened in my life where I just don't feel like it's resolved, and so I can still go back to those memories and I feel just as bad. And it's become like more of a like, well, what did you need in that situation that you didn't get, and how can you give it to yourself now? And I really like that strategy, because it's like, you know, in that situation, is it that you didn't feel heard? Is it that you didn't feel like loved or appreciated? Like, how can you give yourself that now? And that can be in a variety of ways. I like doing the like affirmation thing, even if it feels really weird sometimes. Sometimes I just write out several pages about how wonderful I am. because I am wonderful. So
You are.
this podcast is such a blessing, such a wholesome and positive vibe. Thank you so much. We'll cry. We'll cry. All right.
Did you know that if you try and do positive self-talk, it actually works better if you talk to yourself in the third person? Did you know this?
I think you've talked about it before. I've never actually tried it, but also my self-talk is pretty good to begin with, so
That's good. Yeah, no, if you want your brain to actually like listen to you, if you use your name as opposed to saying I, so like River can do this as opposed to like I can do this, your brain is actually more likely to listen because your brain is conditioned to pay attention when your name is said, as opposed to I. You don't recognize I.
this is all about all you're doing is conditioning your own brain. You are both Pavlov and Pavlov's dog.
I mean, like I said at the beginning, I have like my background in like animal behavior, and we are animals, and like all meditation is just conditioning your brain. So like,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then the last sort of point I wanted to talk about, and then I honestly will be pretty ready to wrap this up unless we got more to talk about, is oh, also, sorry, my final point for healing thing was like, if something is really giving you trouble and it's causing you more distress and like it's not getting better, like, again, please seek out therapy. Please seek out therapy. We can't do these things on our own most of the time. We're not really built for that. And so my last thing is like, sort of, so say, you know, we've done the clearing of the mind, you've gotten in there with your shovel, and you've gotten in there, you've figured out what it is, and you think you have figured out what you need to get out of there. Then the last thing that I like to do, and I like to do this at the end of every meditation thing, or I try to, is like sort of the like grounding yourself, or like coming out of it, or like reconnecting, whatever you want to call it. And this is something that my guided meditations always do too, which is like, when you've been in your brain for a while, it can be good to like come back to yourself slowly, instead, because it can just be like sort of like emotional whiplash if you're like, you just were like, you know, you just finished like processing some like a little bit of trauma, and then immediately it's like, okay, I gotta go make breakfast, like what's next? Like that can just be a lot on your brain. So I think it can be really good to sort of have a few minutes at the end to sort of maybe even do a little bit of the like mindfulness and just be quiet. But again, I like, you know, maybe focusing on your breathing. I really like the sort of grounding techniques of like, if you're sitting in a chair, like feeling the ground against your feet, like feeling the weight of your body on the chair, so on and so forth. You can do it with other senses too. I just particularly like touch because I find that grounding, and that kind of thing. And I think also it can be helpful, even if you work meditation into your routine, to have a routine to continue into after that. Like I have sort of fallen off my routine a little bit, but my general routine that I need to get back to again and get myself back on is like, I wake up, I make a cup of tea, I go sit outside and meditate, I drink my tea while still sitting outside, I go for a walk, and then I have breakfast. And then after that is usually when I start being productive. And so, but like, brains love routine. Brains love when they can kind of do things on autopilot. It's great. So being able, and it makes it easier on your brain to be like, this is, you know, meditation time. Okay, we're like transitioning to productive time. Now we're like in productive time. Whereas like switching all around can make it a lot like harder for you to do things because your brain just isn't trained that way yet. I gotta breathe now.
we need to breathe.
And now we're gonna meditate.
What?
I did, when we had a pause, I did see another stream in the talk show thing that looked like they were doing meditation, and like, that's really cool. I don't know if I personally could do that on a stream. Just like people you just sitting there and you're quiet and people are looking at you. I don't know if I could do that.
Well, it's a bit of a personal thing. I don't really know if I want people to see me meditating.
I don't know if I could do that. Maybe.
You know?
So. Yeah. Anyways, that's pretty much everything I had to talk about. We did the whole thing. So if there's anything else you want to talk about, let me know.
That's all that I have.
Everything. That's all right. That's cool.
Yeah.
Before we end, oh god, I made you go away by accident. It's fine, you're back. If I minimize stuff, OBS is like, it doesn't exist anymore. I joined the Discord because you're cool. Thank you. Um, is there any? So you stream obviously, and
I do.
their stream name is there. It's river_tam. Highly recommend going to follow them. They're wonderful. Is there anything else you want to like plug or like talk about? Like, what do you stream? What do you do?
What do I stream? I stream nonsense. No, I stream
Great.
mostly right now it's gonna be puzzle games, but I sort of do like variety stuff. I might be doing some more of these talk things on my channel recently coming up soon, but
Yeah.
mine are gonna be more focused around what I'm going through in my life.
Yeah, that's fair.
As opposed to this stream, which
I
is
mean,
going around
yeah.
what Wads is doing in Wads' life, which is fine. That's what we should do
I
on
do
Wads.
things, yeah. We should all focus on what Wads is doing in Wads' life.
Yes, this is why it's Queen Wads and not just regular old Wads. Yeah, no, that's what I do. I also have a Discord. I
Yeah.
have a Twitter. I try and be active on Twitter, but Twitter is a thing that I need to learn also how to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I for anybody who's new here, and I appreciate everyone who has followed so far. I would love if you hit the follow button if you haven't already. I have my Discord is down below. I also have started doing Twitter. I kind of do YouTube, but not really, so don't judge me. And I do these streams every Monday at 10 a.m. EDT, Eastern Daylight Time, and on Wednesdays at the same time I do a biology stream where right now I'm playing Subnautica, and we spend a little bit of time playing Subnautica and talking about like the biology of that, and a lot of time just talking about biology in general and whatever hits our fancy at that particular time. But thank you so much everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. I had a great time today. Thank you, River, for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I have been having so much fun doing this. I can't wait to keep doing it. But yeah, I think we'll end it there. So bye bye.
Bye.